WordPress Accessibility Day 2024. Agile Accessibility, Building Inclusivity into the Product Roadmap with speaker Nasa Kuma, Front-End Engineer. This presentation was recorded October 2024.
WordPress Accessibility Day 2024. My name is Laura and I'm your MC for this talk. Thank you for joining us for Agile Accessibility, Building Inclusivity into the Product Roadmap with Nasa Kuma. Nasa is a front-end engineer living in Cameroon. She has a degree in software engineering and is very passionate about open source and building accessible applications. In her current role, he has spearheaded several initiatives to improve the accessibility of their web applications, earning recognition from her peers and leadership team. He is also an active contributor in various open source projects, collaborating with developers around the world to build innovative solutions. Outside of her day job, Nasa is studying to become an Agile coach, as she is deeply interested in helping teams optimize their workflow and deliver value more efficiently. She is excited to bring these agile methodologies into her own work and share them with others. In her free time, you can find her tinkering with new technologies, attending local tech meetups, or volunteering at the community coding events. She is also eager to learn and grow both personally and professionally. Please feel free to add your questions in the Zoom Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. Use the chat to connect with other attendees. Please welcome Nasa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this talk on Agile Accessibility, where we will be discussing building inclusivity into the product roadmap. As Laura already introduced, thank you very much, Laura, for the wonderful introduction. I am Nasa, and I'm joining you today from Cameroon. If you are new to the term accessibility, accessibility in our context is about making sure that all users, including those with disabilities, can use our applications. So to incorporate accessibility in product development, we need to first understand accessibility guidelines and standards that will help us when gathering our requirements and during implementation. So some of our learning outcomes or objectives for this talk include WCAG, inclusive product road mapping, some agile terms, and then integrating accessibility into agile practices. So this talk is a beginner level talk, and I'll try my best to define all the technical terms related to accessibility and agile that I'll be using. And by the end of this talk, I hope that you should have learned a thing or two about accessibility if you're new to the topic, or about agile, just to help you to work in the teams that you find yourselves. So since we are here for the web, I would like us to focus on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which you'd commonly come across as WCAG. Over time, there have been different versions of WCAG. From 2.0, we moved to 2.1, and now we are at 2.2. WCAG 2.2 extends WCAG 2.1, which was published as a W3C recommendation in June 2018. Content that conforms to WCAG 2.2 also conforms to WCAG 2.0 and WCAG 2.1. So it is safe for us to center our conversations on WCAG 2.2. WCAG 2.2 is a set of guidelines created by the Worldwide Web Consortium, WC, as Ellen mentioned, to help make web content more accessible for people with disabilities. These guidelines contain recommendations for designing and coding websites, and WCAG 2.2 covers a wide range of recommendations for making web content more accessible. And following these guidelines will help you make more content accessible to a wider range of people with disabilities, including accommodations for blindness and low vision, deafness and hearing loss, limited movement, speech, disabilities, photosensitivity, and combinations of these, and probably accommodations for learning disabilities and cognitive limitations. But of course, it's not going to address every user need for people with disabilities. These guidelines address accessibility for web content on desktops, laptops, tablets, and mobile devices. And following these guidelines will also often make web content more accessible to users in general. So the key principles, some of the principles of WCAG 2.2 are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And by perceivable, we just mean that information and user interface components must be presentable to users in ways that they can perceive. An example is always to make sure to provide alternative text for any known text content so that it can be changed into other forms for people who need it, other forms of people who need, and we can also want to create like a large print, convert it to Braille, speech symbols, or simple language. Operable means that all users should be able to operate the interface. And in that light, it's essential to make all functionality available from the keyboard. Understandable means that web content must be presented in a way that is easy to understand to all users, including users with cognitive and learning disabilities. So, as a recommendation, text has to be readable and understandable for everybody. So robust means that the content must be compatible with current and future user agents, including assistive technologies. So our application should maximize compatibility. So there's a lot about WCAG 2.2 and WCAG as a whole, and you can always read more about it to just help you know the success criteria and the guidelines to follow depending on the application that you're working on. So Agile plus accessibility, the ultimate intersection. So if you've been following the evolution of software development methodologies, you would know that most, if not all, software products, including websites today, are developed following the Agile methodology, which emphasizes collaboration and improvement, and is based on a set of values and principles that prioritize adaptability and flexibility over following a plan. Before getting here, people struggled with traditional methods of development, which made it very difficult to build, inclusive applications. Agile, on the other hand, because of its iterative nature and its focus on delivering value, makes it a good candidate to incorporate accessibility development practices. So why then do most creators of applications still not include accessibility requirements? Well, in my case, I would say that I was ignorant, but I'm glad that now I make the effort to create and to build inclusively. Accessibility can be included at any point in development, but it will be better and easier to have it in mind from the start because this is more cost effective. So early integrations allows for user testing with diverse groups, giving you valuable feedback that can improve the product before launch. So if you're thinking, oh, I can start building my application now and I'll include accessibility later, please think again. So this talk is on Agile accessibility, not only because Agile development has proven to have many advantages over other methods of development, but because it is easier to include accessibility in Agile. Why is it easier? First of all, Agile promotes iterative cycles, otherwise known as sprints. We'll talk about sprints in future slides, allowing teams to gather feedback regularly. So this means accessibility issues can be identified and addressed continuously throughout the development process, rather than at the end of a very lengthy project timeline, as is in the case with most traditional methods of development. Also, Agile encourages collaboration among diverse team members, including designers, developers, testers, accessibility experts, and every other person that is in the team. So this collaborative environment fosters a shared understanding of accessibility goals, ensures that all perspectives are considered from the start. Also, Agile emphasizes the involvement of the user, including those with disabilities, of course. Regular usability testing sessions with users allows teams to observe how people interact with the product, leading to more informed decisions regarding accessibility features and improvements. Of course, there's a flexibility to adapt to changing requirements, which allows teams to prioritize accessibility enhancements as new insights are gained or as user needs evolve, ensuring that accessibility remains a core focus rather than something that we just think about it later on. So let's just talk about the product roadmap a little bit. So we cannot really talk agile without a solid product vision and a roadmap to outline the journey for developing a product. While the vision covers who and what the product is for, the roadmap is a high-level plan which outlines the journey for product development. It communicates feature releases and when features can be expected, and it's usually divided into phases which could be monthly, quarterly, or by release. And from my image, you see that we have our phases are monthly. We have from January to July. We have different features that we're working on. We have features that are related to enhancement. We have mobile-related features. We have data quality-related features and things that concern automation. All of this we'll be doing throughout the number of months that we have displayed on the image. So this is just an example of how a product roadmap may look like. And it changes depending on the application that we're building and depending on when we start development. So in our discussion on building inclusive product roadmaps, we will focus on developing inclusive user stories, including accessibility in retrospectives and sprints. So it's story time. So about 4 years ago, when I left university, the first application I worked on was a job portal. And the team had decided to use the Agile method. I was excited to be part of this team, looking forward to fitting in, contributing, and learning as much as I could. When work started, as is normal, maybe any newly formed team, we got caught up in coding and the application, and we forgot about every other thing. We neglected our stand-ups, our meetings, our retrospectives, and when we presented what we had been working on for the time when we spent working, it was clear that something was terribly wrong. Now, when organizations and teams experience agile transformation, it is normal for them to experience what my team from 4 years back experienced. So in this same light, successfully adopting agile accessibility in teams or organizations will require a large amount of change in behavior from everyone. And to successfully do this, the agile accessibility transformation process will need to be managed. So missing skills and knowledge will have to be brought in, and teams will have to be supported as they go through the process. So regardless of your role in the team, there's always something you can do. So you should not think or say that, oh, I'm not the product owner, or I'm not the facilitator, or I'm not the accessibility coach, so what can I do? Even as a normal team member, there's a lot that you can do just by reading the guidelines and trying to think about everyone when building and when designing. So let's use this job portal application as an example and look at how to integrate accessibility into some agile practices. So like I already mentioned in previous slides, a good product vision tells us what the product is attempting to achieve and who will benefit from this product. In our case, our product, the job portal, aims to connect job seekers with meaningful opportunities and empower employees to find the right talent, fostering a diverse and thriving workforce. So from this statement, from this vision, you see that it covers all the important parts. We can see clearly who the product is for and what they will achieve, what they will gain from using the product. Now let's see how we can include accessibility to better achieve this vision. So normally, before building any application, you have to do some requirement gathering. And because we're talking accessibility, it will be important that we look at some methods that we can also use to, when gathering our requirements, also gather accessible requirements. So one thing that we can do is to carry out one-on-one interviews with users, particularly those with disabilities, to help us to develop inclusive requirements. So during these reviews, we can ask open-ended questions to understand their needs, challenges, and preferences regarding accessibility features. Another thing is our personas. We have to design to have accessibility personas that represent users with different disabilities and accessibility needs. And we have to ensure that these personas are as detailed as possible. Also, organizing focus groups that include a diverse range of participants, including people with various disabilities, can really help. So we can facilitate discussions around their experiences with existing products and also gather insights on potential improvements. Also, surveys and questionnaires is very important. But when we create them for people with disabilities, let's also remember to create surveys and questionnaires that are accessible. So usability testing, of course, we should have sessions with users with disabilities and where they can test and interact with prototypes or existing products. And we should really observe how they interact with these products so that we can note any accessibility issues that they encounter, so we can use all of this information to improve on the application or to build something that will be very, very usable to everybody. So let's assume that after gathering our requirements and input from top management, we have these features for our minimum viable products. We have user registration and profile creation, job search, job listings, job posting, and we have to work on an administrator dashboard. So our high-level plan or the product roadmap may look something like this, divided into 4 phases. So for phase 1, we'll be working on user registration and profile creation. For phase 2, we'll be developing the administrator dashboard. Phase 3, we'll be working on job listing and job posting features. And for phase 4, we're going to work on job search. So, of course, we'll need a fabulous team to build all of this. And I've decided to call this team Team Dream, because they're going to give us our dream product. So I would love for all of us attending this session to imagine being part of this team and taking up one of the roles that we'll discuss shortly. Think of how you can support the accessibility goals of the team as an agile member. I already picked a role for myself and I'll be working as a facilitator. And no worries, there can be more than one facilitator. It's okay. So in a typical agile team, and of course in Team Dream, we have the product owner who is like the voice of the customer. The product owner is responsible for working with the team, the agile team, as well as the business to maximize the value of the product. The product owner also prioritizes and manages the product backlog, which is where user stories and features are generally listed. We have a facilitator who serves as the agile coach and supports the team to achieve its goal. Excuse me. The facilitator also keeps the agile team moving towards business objectives. So the team always has to be in line, and the facilitator is there to make sure that the team stays on point. The facilitator also removes blockages experienced by the team or members individually. And then we have the agile team, which is made up of developers, designers, data scientists, security experts, testers, and all necessary for a great product. So this team is responsible for delivering the shippable product after every sprint or every iteration. And since we are talking about including accessibility, we also need a full the accessibility coach for starting our accessibility goals. So the coach directs the team to achieve its accessibility goals, and they can do so by conducting training sessions to educate team members, about accessibility principles, guidelines, and best practices. They provide expert advice during the design and development phases to ensure accessibility is integrated from the start, and they promote an inclusive culture within the team and the organization, because we cannot be building with accessibility in mind and as a team we're not inclusive with the things that we do. So since we are being agile, we will have meetings before and after sprints. So a sprint is really just a short defined period of time when a team works on specific tasks to achieve goals, and sprints are generally 2 to 4 weeks long. The sprint planning meeting is held to discuss about the set of features to be delivered for the sprint, as well as user stories. And during this planning meeting, team members can brainstorm the accessibility impacts of the stories that are being proposed, and they can also identify complex interactions or functionalities that may require additional research or extra skills. So it's important that during these meetings, team members should think about the impact of accessibility on the story points and the team's overall speed or velocity. Some accessibility features may be pushed forward to help the team maintain its pace, or other features may be replaced with accessibility features if the team sees that they are of higher priority.
Excuse me 1 second, Nasa.
Yes.
Can we ask you to try turning off your video just to improve the audio quality? The captioners are having a lot of difficulty with dropped audio.
Okay.
We'll still see your slides. We just want to try and turn off the video to decrease your bandwidth.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. Oh, sorry about that.
I can hear you more clearly now. So no, that's quite all right. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So like I was saying, for our dream team, during the first planning meeting, we will plan on how to accomplish the first phase of our delivery, which is implementing the user registration and profile management feature. Since the assumption is that the team is freshly formed, the Agile team members may not have much to say about the user stories and their acceptance criteria. So normally, as was expected, the product owner would develop the stories and can use the opportunity to remind the team on the structure of these stories and also how to come up with good acceptance criteria. Let's not forget that when the team matures, every member is advised to contribute as much as possible to the development of user stories, acceptance criteria, and prioritization of the work that has to be done. So for our user registration feature, we can have a story that looks like what we have on the slide. So for example, as a new job seeker, I want to register using my email or social media accounts so that I can quickly create an account. So this story is simple and straight to the point, and it serves its purpose of briefly and informally describing a software feature or a function from the perspective of the end user. So however, whether the story is accessible or not depends on its acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria, for those of us who are not familiar with the term, is the set of conditions that must be met for the user story to be considered complete. So normally, like in most cases, when people don't think about accessibility, the acceptance criteria for a story like this will be maybe users can register. So after implementing the story, what we will check is that users can register using an email address, social media account. Okay, we'll say good. The registration form includes all fields, maybe email, password. We say yes, everything is good. Then users receive a confirmation message after successful registration. But we see clearly that this acceptance criteria leaves out a lot of users. So since we're thinking accessibility, we could modify our acceptance criteria to look like this. Users can register using email or social media with clear, accessible labels. All input fields are navigable via keyboard and compatible with screen readers. guidelines that I'm just talking about, we see that we are concerned with we see that we are including accessible labels. We are making sure that our input fields can be navigated using the keyboard, and everything is compatible with screen readers. And we're also trying to get to send our messages, our error messages out in a very, very simple and descriptive manner. So for the second part of our user story, we can, for like looking at the second user story option, we see that as a job seeker, I want to create a detailed profile, including work experience, education, skills, so that employers can view my qualifications. And again, if we're just looking at is very, very simple stories that don't include everyone, the acceptance criteria can be users can put their work experience, education, and skills. Users can save their profile without errors. And then the profile displays correctly to employers after saving. But this again, like I said, does not include everybody. So a set of criteria like all fields have accessible labels and form elements are compatible with assistive technologies is good. Tooltips or help text are available for complex fields presenting, I'm not seeing one, but complex presented in an accessible manner, and validation messages are conveyed through accessible alerts that are easy to understand. Again, this set of criteria tries to some extent to include as many users as possible. So during the sprints, during the development of our features and when work is being done, there are also some things that we can do to make sure that we are developing accessible features. So in most Agile frameworks, and the most common of them, maybe the Scrum framework, it's advised that there should be like daily meetings that they call stand-ups that team members attend, where they will talk about what they did the previous day, what they're going to do today, and they share any challenges. See that these meetings can be a good opportunity for team members to probably share with the accessibility challenges that they face, be on a feature that they were working the previous day, and let's say they were not able to complete it because of this and this challenge. So because the team has the opportunity to meet every day face-to-face or even remotely, it's just the fact that they have the opportunity to meet on daily basis. They can always look at what is not going well. They can always talk about the problems that they have, and they can always block out time to try to fix these issues. So during the sprints and during stand-ups, members can still discuss about accessibility challenges that they are having, and they see how they can work on it. Now, there are some teams that practice paired programming, and with the aim of facilitating skill transfer. Let's say that maybe there's a team of very junior developers or designers, and there's someone who is like a tech lead or at a higher level. This person will usually, the team could have maybe paired sessions of working or programming where the person who is more senior can work maybe on the same computer with the juniors just to help them, to aid them through their tasks. This kind of sessions too can be very useful when trying to debug like accessibility challenges. So maybe you are working on an accessibility feature, you're a junior, you can take it to someone who is more senior to you, and throughout the Agile process, you can always work you can always follow up on accessibility issues and just generally stories that can help us to achieve our goal as a team. So at the end of our sprints, it is highly recommended that we hold a retrospective. And this retrospective is, as a matter of fact, one of the most important agile ceremonies, where we sit down to evaluate the sprints that just passed, and maybe we ask questions like what went well, what should be improved, what should be discarded because maybe it wasn't working, and so on and so forth. So during these meetings, you can reserve time on the agenda for discussing accessibility practices, and the accessibility skills of team members will help in achieving accessibility goals. So we can always block out time to say, oh, how can we improve on our accessibility practices, and what do our members need to improve on their accessibility skills? Are the methods that we're using to achieve our accessibility goals working, or do we need to try something else? So during these meetings, the accessibility coach is very, very active, because here he maybe helps the team, or he or she or they help the team to answer very, very important questions, and also try to, if the team is following up as agreed, and if the team is moving in the right direction. So during these meetings, it's advisable to seek open discussions on instances where skills or practices were well implemented, because of course, when we do good work, it's important that we always appreciate ourselves. And then where maybe they were forgotten, or maybe they did not work well. And we also try to identify opportunities for coaching, skills training, or even any tools that will help us to improve on our outcome. So we're already at the end. Wow. So just some key takeaways. Since this talk is really for everybody that works in a team. Maybe you can be a project manager, you may be a developer, a designer, regardless. There is always something that you can contribute to accessibility. Even if your organization has not bought into the idea, because that's like the challenge that I face. Most of the projects that I work on, I just take on the initiative to implement accessibility features. I'm not really given the time to do that, but when I'm able, I just add a few things to help improve on the application. So even if your organization has not bought in, even if you feel like, oh, we are just tests, or I'm just this, there's always something that can contribute to accessibility. Just study the guidelines and see where you come in, see how you can contribute. No matter how little the contribution is going to go a long way. Also, like I said before, the best time to include accessibility is from the start. So if you're starting something today and you're lucky to be here and we're talking about accessibility, just think of how you can include it from the beginning, because it's going to cost you more time, more money, more effort if you postpone it to do it when your application has already matured. And again, accessibility does not happen overnight. It requires time, management buy-in, team effort, and the support from the entire organization to be a success. So be patient while you're trying to implement accessibility, and don't be too hard on yourself. So thank you very much for listening. We still have a lot of time, so I think I'll take questions now.
Well, that was awesome. Congratulations. Great job on this. I wanted to give a shout out. Christopher put in the chat, because I know that sometimes they scroll by. He's literally going to propose accessible acceptance in an hour. So this talk came at a great time, that he's taking away and already sharing your ideas with his coworkers. So
wow,
he praised you on that. And yeah, a lot of people are using sprint planning. So the ideas that you gave to them, they love those, to incorporate them into the future with that. So we do have a couple of questions, so we'll move on to that. What is a common issue or topic you have to keep addressing as front-end developer? Something that keeps being repeated or addressed often that you could give us insight and or helpful ways to address in an agile way as we do the same things when we gather groups to discuss. So what are some things that keep coming up? Issues.
Please, can you just take the question over again? I was a bit distracted.
I'm sorry, what?
Let me turn on. I said, can you take the question again? I was a bit distracted.
Oh. If you want to open up the Q&A at the bottom, and if you want to read through that.
Okay.
It's the first one.
Okay. What common issue or topic have been addressing as a front-end developer? Wow, this is really a bit very general. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. Let me see. I don't really think that I've had like any issue that keeps coming up repeatedly, that I've had to address.
Okay.
But I would say that something like dealing with state management, because most of the applications that I've built I normally work with Angular. So I've discovered that the idea of handling the state of an application is a topic that maybe I feel like it has a steep learning curve. So there are many times that maybe you can start building something and you are managing data, but over time you discover that you need to begin to change your methods of handling data, because as the application grows, you need to reuse other tools and try to adapt. So for me, I would say that you should always just do research, because when technology changes and there's really no one size fits all approach to anything. It's true that you can address a particular challenge today and maybe tomorrow it comes on in another way. You will still have to find a way to address it. So it's not like maybe a one size fits all kind of approach. So you just be open and flexible, because really that's the idea of agile. Something comes up, you try to adjust it and you adapt. And even if it comes up again, maybe you see why it's coming up again and you try to address it. It's not really like you can solve an issue once and for all. As the application grows, as things change, you always need to change your approach.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. The next question from Anonymous: Do you have suggestions to get support from key project leaders to help with accessibility?
Oh yes, I don't have a very personal opinion, but the book I used, I think I put the name of the book. There's the Agile Accessibility Handbook by Dylan Hanbel. He really talks about some very good moments and methods that you can use to obtain management buy-in, and he emphasizes on the fact that you should take it gradually, and because you take time to convince management and the other teams that affect the development team. So you can just always look at the book, because there are some really good tips on getting your project leaders and every other person on board when trying to get into agile accessibility.
Yeah, it's always great to kind of have those resources at your fingertips. Whether it's like bookmarking or actually buying a book that has that information so that you can use that as a resource, because then it makes your credibility even a little bit more important to those people because you're like, sometimes they're like, well, who are you to say that? So to have those resources to be able to back you up sometimes is really good. So that's awesome. All right, our time is, or I'm sorry, we have one more question. What are some of the best tools that you recommend using during the testing phase? You had touched on that.
So I generally just use the Axe browser extension. I think you'll find it, I mean, it should be available for most browsers. So that's what I use. And I'm still not very like experienced with like using more complex tools. So I just use Axe because it gives me all of my vulnerability issues clearly and I can just quickly go through them and try to solve the ones that I can solve. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the browsers are coming up with a lot of great extension tools that are free to use. Those are always good to start with first. And then, as everyone has said in the past, it's always good to just do a manual check too and not relying on a tool. Um, just, having different people look at the website too would be really beneficial.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. If nobody else has a question that they want to put in the Q&A, I thank you very much and appreciate that. We'll give our captioner and interpreter a little bit extra time for a break, and we will see you at the top of the hour. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you to WordPress Accessibility Day 2024 sponsors. Platinum sponsor 20i. Easily build, deploy, and manage all your projects with 20i Managed WordPress Hosting. One UI for all your servers, apps, sites, databases, security, DNS, and email. Perfect for agencies, e-commerce, developers, multi-site hosting, and high-traffic sites. Platinum sponsor Equalize Digital. Since all they do is accessibility, every post on their blog is an accessibility resource. You can find webinar recordings, articles, and additional resources at equalizedigital.com/resources. Platinum sponsor, WP Engine. WP Engine provides the most relied upon and trusted WordPress products for businesses, brands, and agencies of all sizes. Thanks to our gold sponsors, GoDaddy, Grackle Docs, Gravity Forms, Green Geeks, TPGI, and Yoast. And thank you to our silver sponsors, CodeGeek, Drake Cooper, Elementor, Overnight Website, Pressable, Second Melody, and Accessibility Collective.